Hi everyone, this is Tim Derling. Long absence from Tim's Vinyl Confessions for new episodes. And I apologize for that. I could say I've been busy, but I know other people are busy and they do podcasts and update them more frequently than I do. So want to get back on track in 2015 with some new episodes, and thought I'd take a little bit different approach this time. I have a finite amount of vinyl, and I don't want to blow out on it. So I thought we get a lot of classic music fans here. I'm 40, I'll tell you that right now. And if you're like me, a lot of people my age did not start out with vinyl, nor did we start out with CDs. We started out with cassette tapes. And I still have, for my favorite bands, a lot of cassettes. I'm not getting rid of them. And I think that cassettes are sort of, maybe they're coming back a little bit of popularity with the Guardians of the Galaxy soundtrack being based around a mixed cassette, the whole idea of the mixtape. Cassettes are interesting to me when you talk about formats and released in different countries, because more than any other format, definitely more than vinyl or CDs, cassettes can look drastically different depending on what country they came from, what label they were on, and where you picked them up. So I can't think of any. My most complete cassette collection is my Kiss cassette collection. So I thought I'd start out showing the Kiss collection that I have on cassette. And if you've got any old tapes laying around, it'd be interesting to see if they look the same as yours or if they look different. I've got a couple rare ones and a couple really old pressings of some of them. Kind of an even split between U.S. and Canadian issues. So we started on this Tim's Vinyl Confessions, even though it's not about vinyl today. This is about my Kiss cassette collection. This is the first Kiss album on cassette, 1974, although this is a later issue. This is what it looks like on the side, and this is what it looks like on the back. This is a Canadian polygram issue. This is what the cassette itself looks like. And I used to call it the insert. I guess technically it's the J card because it's shaped like a J. And it's really small printing and really hard to read. And that's the first Kiss album. My version of the first Kiss album. Next one up, Hotter Than Hell, also 1974. This is again a Canadian issue. That's what it looks like on the side. And the back. These issues were probably done sometime in the 80s. This one is, I don't know which one's older or newer. As you can see, the first Kiss album had a sticker on it with the label on it. This one actually has all the information printed directly on the cassette, which would make me think it's actually a little bit newer. But I have no way of checking that. Although there is a little bonus that comes with this one. So there's the J card, insert, a little bit of info, not a lot. But I had an older version of Hotter Than Hell that the tape wound up, as tapes would do. And this one was the American issue. As you can see, vastly different, really different. I do have some other tapes that look like this. Actually, not as much info in this one as there is in the Canadian issue. Next up is Dressed to Kill, 1975. This is a U.S. issue. It's pretty easy to spot right away. It looks very different. And this is probably, I want to say, the very oldest and late 80s issue, because instead of being the cream colored cassette that a lot of the polygram ones were, this one is clear. And it also doesn't have visual screws in it too. It's when they started just gluing them together, which, from somebody that grew up on cassettes, I've saved many of cassette being able to get in with a screwdriver and unwind the tape. But when they glue them together, you're pretty much, that casing is finished. So here's the J card to Dressed to Kill. The next one is Alive. This is a Canadian issue. It's actually a Canadian Columbia House issue. You can really spot that easily on cassette tapes because it'll have a 6-digit number in brackets with a C followed. And Columbia House CDs had a T on the end. So it's both of the records, double playing time, it says here. It's all on one cassette. These longer cassettes could hold more, but they were also more prone to breaking, which is why sometimes, as you'll see, They end up being on 2. But this one's all on 1. Big reel of tape there, and it's clear colored. Probably from sometime in the 80s. And this is the J card. On the back, I don't know if you can tell or not how well that shows up. Songs are actually out of order compared to how they actually were on the album. It's Cassettes used to do that. 8-tracks did it all the time. Next up is Destroyer, 1976. This is a newer American issue of Destroyer. This one's interesting. Destroyer in very, very small print, as is the logo. And again, this is a newer issue of it, clear colored, American issue. And the J card. I'm just trying to think here. Some versions of Destroyer have Sweet Pain and Beth reversed. I believe this one is okay. No, I'd have to look at them all, but side 2, there's issues with songs being in different order. I don't have the originals on cassette, which is next up on the list. I don't know if it ever actually was issued on cassette. If somebody out there knows, I'd love to know. I know it was issued on 8-track, and I know it was issued on record, and I have it on record, as you've seen, if you've seen the earlier Kiss vinyl episode. So I don't know. I don't know if Kiss the Originals was ever issued on cassette. If anyone has it, please post a picture on the comments here, either on Facebook, on YouTube. I'd like to see what it looks like. I've tried Google imaging it, no luck. So next up, Rock and Roll Over. This one is a little bit different. It's at first glance you say, well, it's an American issue, which is very true. Obviously it is. But on the back, you can see here, manufactured by BMG Direct Marketing. So this was a Record Club version. And where that comes into play is the printing used on the tape itself. Looks quite different. BMG, I don't think, was quite as popular as Columbia House. 1977, an album which has been recently reissued. Hello, Not on Cassette. Love Gun, 1977. Again, this is a U.S. edition. And a more recent issue of it, because there's the cassette looks like. And this one, for the first time in a while, actually has a little bit of information inside the J card. Not a lot, but a little. Love Gun followed by Alive 2. This is another Canadian edition. So the entire album, the entire contents of the album are on one cassette tape. Another lengthy reel of tape, as you'll see in a moment. Very small printing on the back cover of this J card too. This one again is printed directly on. Very thick, big, wide reel of tape on this one. And now we get, could go to double platinum. I'm going to go into the solo albums. This really kind of illustrates the difference between U.S. and Canadian issues. There's Paul Stanley's solo album. This is a U.S. edition. You can tell that right away. Right here, Polygram sometimes used this font for their albums. They tended not to use it for Kiss. It tended to be the black with the white lettering. But they did with this album. That's the back cover there, or the back other side of the J card, I guess you could say. Sometimes cassettes will do something where they'll try to cram a lot of information in there in some very small print, which is what they did there. And there's what Paul's solo album looks like as a U.S. cassette, at least that issue of it. There's Gene's album. Looks the same as Paul's on the side there. And on the back, although this is a newer version, this is probably from the early 90s. So there's Gene's actual set. No information inside of it. I'm glad that he didn't try to list all the guest stars that was on his album. No, actually, depending, I think the price point depended on whether you got a copy with credits in it or not, because they wanted to save money, so they just kind of simplified, save money on printing. Now, we switched to a couple of Canadian issues. That's what Ace's album looked like in Canada. Very, very different takes up the whole cover. So by looking at that, you kind of get an idea of what they all would have looked like. And then there's the back cover. Very, very different, very striking difference between the U.S. version. Now here's the Canadian cassette itself with a sticker on it. It's not printed. It's actually a sticker. Ace's album. And J card. Fair bit of information in there. I think it's got everything in here that the original CD had for information. Peter's album, also a Canadian issue, identical in layout to Ace's, the one that you just saw. And probably from very close to the same time period. Again, it's another sticker. And the J card. Some info in there as well. So now we come to double platinum. Now, I don't understand why they did this, where the versions that I showed you of Alive and Alive 2, everything was on one cassette. This version I have a double platinum, they placed onto 2. I think that was a kind of a ripoff, because it's possible. I mean, let's put it this way. Alive and Alive 2 are issued as 2 CDs. If you get double platinum, it's 1. So why couldn't they put it on one cassette? A cassette holds way more than a CD. That's kind of my point. So anyway, this is that's the cassette 1 on the back. Obviously the cover isn't embossed. This copy I have actually came from Canadian Columbia House, but they just imported a U.S. version of it. There was no Canadian version they sent at that time. Obviously there was, it's just this was, I believe, the late 90s when I picked this up. The whole reason I have this Kiss collection is sometime around 1998 I thought to myself, sooner or later cassettes are going to be obsolete. I'd like to have some complete collections of my favorite bands, and so Kiss was definitely on that list. So I set about kind of a fun challenge trying to find all of the Kiss cassettes. And it took me a while, but I tracked down, I'm going to say, the majority of them. Next up, 1979. This is probably the first Kiss cassette I actually saw. Dynasty, also one of my favorite albums. This is a Canadian issue that they put out at one point, and I've only seen one other Kiss album with the Priceless Collection written along the top. I don't know if any others exist. I've only seen this one and Destroyer as the Priceless Collection. I've also seen a Destroyer record that had the Priceless Collection printed right on the front cover. And I don't know if they did the entire run of Kiss albums to that point, but it makes this one interesting. Also, you see on there's a Casablanca logo, but over here, the serial number does not follow the Casablanca numbering, nor does it follow the polygram numbering. It's KS410, and I believe the Destroyer cassette was KS44, which makes me think there are others out there. And the fact that I've never been able to see them tells me they're quite rare. This one references the Casablanca serial number. I don't know if you can see that there, but it says previously released as NBLP 7152. This is what the cassette itself looked like. This was when Casablanca had switched to polygram distribution, and I believe that Casablanca did that in Canada before the U.S. There's nothing inside here except like a Dolby system insignia. Next one is one I really like. I want to show you. I want to show you the cassette first before I do anything. Of course, it's unmasked, and this is like an 80s era version of Unmasked with a sticker on it, but I didn't have a cover for it. And what I found at a flea market was this right here. I found this with a cassette. The cassette was obviously damaged, so I got rid of the cassette and I put the newer cassette inside this J card. But this is obviously directly from 1980, and I love this printing because this takes me back. I've seen my earliest memories of cassettes. There's the typewritten font like that. That's just the sign of wealth. It's very, very old. This is what it looks like on the side. And here you can see that it's Canadian, and it's also a Canadian Columbia House issue of Unmasked. I combine it with that newer cassette tape. So I'd love to find some more of the Kiss cassettes that look really, really old like that. When I was trying to complete the Kiss cassette collection, I had a bit of a difficulty in finding the Elder, which I'm not surprised. And what I ended up with is a Dutch copy. So that's music from the Elder. This is a Netherlands copy. That's what it looks like on the side, and that's what it looks like on the back. This is Kiss music from the Elder, and it's got a little bit some songwriting credits there. And if you're curious, this is the old American version. It starts off with the Oath, and it goes from there. And this is what the actual cassette tape looks like. It's got the Casablanca logo on it, but it's got a international phonogram serial number. I'd mentioned in my vinyl episode Creatures of the Night with the original cover was like a holy grail type of find for me. I couldn't find it anywhere when I got into Kiss, because I got into them prior to the reissues in 1997. The first major step was when I located this. I found the cassette tape to my favorite Kiss album, and I love the fact that I finally located it with the real cover. And that's what it looked like on the side and on the back, the inside of it. This is a Canadian issue, obviously. I've seen the American issue. It looks way different. This cassette looks a lot like the Elder cassette that I just held up, but again, this is Canadian, but it's just a worldwide phonogram way of printing their cassettes. This one actually has polygram etched raised letters into the tape itself. And I'm going to put that too far away. Of course, the first version of Creatures of the Night I wanted the album, so I settled for getting this. Now, ironically, I had this on CD too. Ironically, this is one of the very few pieces of vinyl I don't have, is Creatures of the Night with this 1985 issued cover. There's the side and the back, which, if you look at them, very, very similar on the side, on the back, and the credits. It's just that this one previously released as NBL 57270, and it also says 1985 Kiss Organization. So that's the two versions of Creatures. This is what the cassette itself looks like to the 85 reissue. Typical polygram at the time with a sticker on it. So now it's 1983. Look it up. This is a Canadian version. This big logo on the side. That's what the back looked like. It's very plain, black and white, but then again, so was the actual record itself. Not much for information on the inside of it either. Oh, there's the cassette. It's another cream color cassette. They were still making them this way with the polygram raised letters on them. Next up is Animal Eyes. This is a newer Canadian Columbia House version of Animal Eyes. It actually has a little bit in it for some substance. So there, it's got the Kiss logo on there. This is a clear cassette, so how I know it's quite a bit newer. J card actually folds out this time in the picture, and for the first time in any of the cassettes I have, it actually has lyrics, albeit in very, very small print. Moving along through the 80s, this is Asylum. This is a Canadian version of Asylum. I've also seen Asylum where it's like the front cover, blue logo, yellow title. This one's just plain. some credits. And this, I've also seen this one with a sticker on it, but this one is probably slightly newer pressing. It's just printed on here. Next up, we've got Crazy Nights. This is another Canadian issue. Again, blank. I think if you bought it in the U.S., same thing. Yellow logo, blue logo, yellow title. Back cover. There's the tape itself, printed on. And folds out. This one folds way out. Pictures of the group on the back. Lyrics and an order form for the then new video cassette, Kiss Exposed. 1988, Smashes, Thrashes, and Hits. This is a Canadian Columbia House version. See that it's a clear cassette. This has the lyrics spread out on both sides and then some credits as well. 1989, of course. Hot in the Shade. This folds way out. Picture of the band, credits, and all of the lyrics. That's what the cassette looks like, printed, not stickered. I don't have much for bootleg stuff, so I just thought I'd throw this in for fun. This is a bootleg cassette that I picked up a long time ago. It's called Live in San Francisco. It's April 23rd, 1992. This was recorded when Kiss were doing a club tour prior to the release of Revenge. And like I said, it's a bootleg, so there's not much to talk about. It's, it's not bad. It's not a bad set list. And it's cool to have at least one bootleg. Like I said, that was leading up to the release of this. Another great Kiss album, Revenge, 1992. This version here is Canadian Columbia House issue, although it's interesting to note that as the 80s progressed, for the most part, I found that the Canadian cassettes, since I lived right on the Canada-U.S. border, bought a lot of cassettes on both sides. The cassettes started to look more uniform and got to the point where the only real difference was the address of the record company would be printed on there. So here we have, this folds down like so, with the lyrics over here. You've got the CDs and the records. I'm not showing you anything you haven't seen before, but just how it's laid out in cassette, they had to contend with the smaller size. This is the album that got me into Kiss, Alive 3. This is a U.S. copy. And a lot of good stuff inside this J card. It's all the stuff that's inside the CD. I don't have the record to compare it to, but this is probably inside the record and more. It's got all those pictures, a little write-up, pictures of old backstage passes. This has the Kiss family tree and a full list of the road crew. I thought that was a nice touch that they did that. 1994, this is Kiss My Ass, Classic Kiss Regroove, the tribute album that Kiss also took part in. This is a U.S. BMG Music Club issue, so it's censored. It's got the American flag on it. And nothing, having seen this on cassette and LP, there's nothing much different on it. See, the prints get a little bit smaller. And it's got the same pictures that the cassette, or the CD and the album all have, and all the same credits. Nearing the end of the Kiss cassettes, this is Unplugged, 1996. This is a Canadian Columbia House issue. And I love Unplugged, actually. I recommend Unplugged to anyone who doesn't think Kiss is a capable band. They may not like them, but I would still say watch the Unplugged and tell me if they don't think that they can play. This is interesting. Here, if you can see in the middle there, there's something printed there. It says Sony Music. I don't know if that's because Columbia House was still owned by what was CBS Records, but there it is. I've always liked the pictures inside the Unplugged album of the Mega Kiss, six-man Kiss, even though it was short-lived. An order form for Kisstory, which I don't own, don't care to. I've seen it. The spine breaks. And also in 1996, You Wanted the Best, You Got the Best. Like the CD, it came in a red case, so it actually has some vastly different colors on it. It actually looks like that. And this one's different because this actually isn't a complete, size of the fold, but they were trying to get cheap on the amount of material that was used, and the actual cassette is red as well. This is another Canadian Columbia House issue. So there's no mistaking which case this is to go back into. 1997. It's one of those things I just bought because. Greatest Kiss. My opinion, a very poor compilation of songs. Very predictable. I have to say, though, I do like that cover for whatever reason. Another Canadian Columbia House issue. In Canada, this was actually on Polytel, which I think in Canada is what K-Tel morphed into. K-Tel off the famous Greatest Hits compilation company. This obviously came out. This release came out in 97, post reunion tour, when they were trying to pretend like the non-makeup era didn't exist, as if we forget. Next up, Carnival of Souls, 1987. Carnival of Souls, The Final Sessions. It's actually subtitled. And there wasn't much in the CD, so it's basically what you get inside the cassette is the photo of the band and one little written page of credits there. So it's Carnival of Souls, The Final Sessions, except on the cassette. It just is called Carnival of Souls, which is how I've always referred to it. And this is a Canadian issue. I've only got one more to show you. Psycho Circus, 1998. It's the most recent Kiss cassette that I have. And the first thing that you'll notice right away is, unlike the CD and unlike the vinyl, which just came out last year, it's not lenticular. It's just one picture. And the picture that's the reverse of the lenticular is also shown inside the J card. Folds out. And on the other side is the remainder of the lyrics and the cassette itself. It's a Canadian issue, so I don't know if there's any cassettes that are newer than that. I think they came out internationally, but that's where mine stopped. But other than Killers, which I'd like to have, and again, like I said, the originals, and then of course promo cassettes, and I don't have any cassette singles either. That's my Kiss cassette collection. So I'm going to be doing a few of these videos where I go through my cassettes. I hope you like them. Hold on to your cassettes. They're small. It's not like they take up a lot of space. There's no need to get rid of them. So anyway, thanks for watching Tim's Final Confessions. Hope you've enjoyed this non-final issue. Hope you enjoy some other ones. And if you're just discovering the show, this is me talking about my classic rock collection. So I've got a lot of videos for you to catch up on. You can find links to it on Facebook and also on YouTube. Thank you for watching.